We want to turn now to our chief foreign affairs correspondent, Andrea Mitchell, joining us by phone. Andrea, good morning to you. I imagine this was not what you thought you would wake up to on a Saturday morning. Talk to us about the larger historical context. We heard there from Rath is the 50th anniversary of that other awful surprise attack back in 1973. Set the scene for us, if you will.
Well, Rath is exactly right. This is so unprecedented. We've had the skirmishes before and outbreaks. I was there in 2021, but there was always a trigger, something that happened. And then it was the Al-Aqsa Mosque, a holy site to the Palestinians and to all Arabs, in fact, where there had been a trigger, in each of these instances, in the intifadas, the first, second, and third intifada in the West Bank. But Gaza is different. Gaza has always been, as Richard and Rolf were saying, a place, a no man's land, really, for Israelis. And there have been these incidents before. The U.S. in the past, secretaries of state, Hillary Clinton in 2009, intervened, went there, negotiated a solution, but it was always small scale. Small scale, though, was always major to Israelis. Israelis take this, so seriously, and this is beyond anything that we've ever seen before. And it is on the 50th anniversary of the Yom Kippur War, which is something that people were holding conferences here. I was at one in New York on Thursday at the Council on Foreign Relations with the former Israeli Prime Minister and other officials from both countries and some of my journalist colleagues. So it was always an academic exercise on the anniversaries of the Yom Kippur War, never anything like this. And again, there was a lot of tension growing in the West Bank and elsewhere in the country because of growing friction between the Palestinians and the Israelis, because of the most right-wing coalition, Netanyahu's coalition, possibly taking more land, because of the settlement conflicts. But that was in the West Bank. Gaza has been something that Israel, as Richard Engel was saying, would prefer to ignore because it is ungovernable. And it's always been a tragedy from the Palestinian perspective. And there's this division between Hamas, which runs Gaza, which has always been the most radical of the Palestinians. The other piece of this is that there has been really no Palestinian strong leadership for many, many years. No negotiations really between the Palestinians and the Israelis since 2014. And they have been tentatively talking, intensive negotiations, actually, which haven't reached anything other than a framework for a very different kind of resolution of the Israeli-Arab situation between the Saudis and Israel, recognition by Saudi Arabia and Israel, which people in Israel have been saying, and some in the Netanyahu coalition, Netanyahu himself has been saying would be the end of friction in this region, something that hard right members of the coalition have opposed. But that's the kind of thing that has been discussed at the UN when we were there just a few weeks ago. Nothing has been contemplated like this. The surprise aspect of this is also shocking. You've been talking about the Iron Dome. The Iron Dome has been, virtually impenetrable. There have always been one or two stray rockets, but nothing on the scale of this. And as Rolf was saying, back when one Israeli soldier was held for many, many years, 1,000 Palestinians were turned over when negotiations to try to get him out failed. They never forget. They never leave anyone behind. And here, when you have potentially soldiers as well as civilians, and all Israelis serve in the military, all except the most religious group of Israelis have required military service, men and women, for decades. Well, the entire country will be, completely seized with this. This is not something that will divide Israelis. There will be an investigation as to how they failed to see it coming, and there will be political ramifications from this. But this comes after a period of a full year of full, angry divisions involving the military, former intelligence, protests against the Netanyahu government, the coalition government. That was over judicial reform. That was over democratic principles. Nothing like this, though, could happen without uniting the Israeli citizenry. And so the how did this happen aspects of it will come much later. This is, as Netanyahu says, war, and there's no real Palestinian leadership in Gaza, no communication with any of them in order to have negotiations to try to resolve this. This will have to be resolved, and the Americans will have to get into it. This is something that the State Department and the National Security Council are going to have to address immediately, because they cannot see America's closest ally and the only real democracy in the Middle East overwhelmed. The relationship between Israel and the United States is so critical.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app, or follow us on social media.